From Ordinary to Extraordinary is a Young Archaeologists Club project managed by the Council for British Archaeology. It's part of the Shout Out Loud project funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. We've got 8 yak groups from across the UK participating, and we're going to head over to Liverpool to see what they've been up to.
So we've had a brilliant workshop this morning with our Young Archaeologists Club, so that's 11 to 16 year olds here in Liverpool who are learning about Liverpool and slavery. So we've looked at pottery, we've looked at some of the trade beads, we've looked at historic maps, and they've been starting to explore all of that evidence and pull it together so that they can create a small exhibition which will go on display in a couple of months' time.
Well, we've been learning about how the slave trade impacted Liverpool and what evidence we've got on maps and archaeology finds.
And we've been learning about how, with the maps, how in a century the docks have been expanded and the old dock has been covered over.
Next, we're off to explore a pet cemetery project with Brighton yak.
So we're doing this project which is called From Ordinary to Extraordinary, and we're doing a survey of the pet cemetery at Preston Manor.
Fantastic.
My name is Daisy and my animal in the pet cemetery is George the Pavilion cat. George was born in 1965 and died in 1980. George is black and white with a black and white tail, white paws and white tummy. He was so famous he had a book written about him.
Next, we're going to take a look at 2 short films created by members of Devon and Torbay yak.
Welcome to our film about the ARP in World War II, and they played a pivotal role in saving lives during World War II. And ARP's main role was to try and protect people during air raids when German aircrafts bombed places and targets in the United Kingdom. They handed out gas masks and guided people to air raid shelters. Did each household keep the stirrup pump after the war was over? If not, what happened to them?
This is the stirrup pump. This was used for fighting fires. Everybody was encouraged to buy one. They cost about £1.23 in our money today. If you couldn't afford to buy one, neighbours would share one. Now, to operate this pump, it takes 3 people. You need 1 to operate the pump, 1 to fetch the water, and 1 to fight the fire with the hose.
Torquay Museum is full of historical artefacts on display and in its storerooms. Some of them tell us important real-life events. One such event was the bombing of the church in St Mary Church on the 30th of May 1943. At 2 o'clock on the 30th of May 1943, at least 2 German fighter bombers took off from an airport in France, their target Torquay. They flew just above the waves to avoid radar detection. In 40 minutes, they were spotted by the Berryhead Coast Guard in Brixham, who sounded the siren at German planes were approaching.
Next, we're going to find out more about lace making in the 19th century with Chiltern yak.
In the Chilterns, one of the particularly important industries was lace making, and so we have evidence of children as young as 3 being taught how to make lace. It was these children that Chiltern yak have spent the last few months learning about.
I really liked learning about how life was as a Victorian child, because in school we never really learned about it, so I wasn't really aware before of like how different it was.
Although life was tough, and even children spent most of their time working, they still had some games they liked to play. We tested out a few of them, like marbles, jacks, pick-up sticks and bagatelle.
Next, we're heading up to Scotland to visit the Rockfield Centre Yacht based in Oban. They've created a fantastic podcast and they've been using the 360-degree camera to capture areas of local interest.
My first question for you is, how many people do you think lived in MacArthur's Cave?
Well, that's a very good question, and it's not easy to answer, because the first people were hunter-gatherers. They only came in the good weather, so they would come over by boat and they would use the cave as a temporary shelter just for a short while. They would get as much food as they could.
Heading back down south, we're going to take a look at the Childhood Tales project with the brilliant Worcestershire Young Archaeologists Club.
I think there's been a wide range of things from like Victorians about like working in like mines. Then there's like burials from the Neolithic times.
Well, I really enjoyed learning about the medieval burials. To see the difference between where you were in like society and how much money you had. There was a child who's buried with a pet and stuff, and one who was buried with like practically nothing.
So they would have had like meat to eat and drink, but they wouldn't have had very many options to do. Like they couldn't go to the pub and they couldn't like play cards or anything like that. So they didn't have much to do.
I think it's got to be lack of education, because they can't pay. They've just been forced to work for long hours each day. There's more time to play with friends, to do things, whereas then they'd just be constantly trying to work, trying to support families.
It's probably the best time you can be to be a child is now.
We're heading over to the Rusty Club based at Weston-super-Mare, who created a brilliant exhibition that was translated into Polish to bring the local community together. Last but not least, let's take a look at the project created by Colchester Yak.
Colchester has a great Roman history, but for our special project we are studying particularly turbulent Tudor times, when Colchester had an exceptional number of Protestant martyrs.
So today we started at Colchester Castle and the prisons there, and then we walked past the Red Lion Hotel, which dates to the 1500s, and then we walked through Colchester Town and went to the Town Hall, and then we ended up at the Balcony Gate, which is where the martyrs were executed.
My favourite part was probably the part where we walked around and saw everything. I like going inside the town hall where all the where the memorial was.
So So the projects that you've seen today have a real co-creation and youth voice focus, where our members have come together with their volunteers and youth leaders to develop and then deliver a whole gamut of different projects with some amazing outputs. We're really pleased with what they've created, and we hope that in the future they will have a better understanding and love of their local area.